am Lee Bay, and this is Vaughn Monroe, and welcome to Real Soul. Today we're going to take a look at an interesting genre of movies, the action movie.
Action, explosions, punches, beatdowns, running, jumping, fighting, and so on and so forth. But hey, that's my understanding of what real action is. What's your?
Denzel Washington in that movie with a train, runaway train or something.
I mean, I saw Shaft back in the day.
Action Jackson. Action Jackson too.
Yeah. Unstoppable.
Blade. Shaft. Cotton Comes to Harlem.
I liked Training Day.
Now, my pick, and that's interesting, Action Jackson, the one guy said, which is actually some pretty good. I had to pause and talk about that, but interesting movie from the 80s with Craig T. Nelson and Vanity. Formerly from Vanity 6.
Wasn't
yeah.
that Carl Weathers,
and Carl
football
Weathers is a
player?
star.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. It's sort of an extension of the blaxploitation where they get black athletes to run around. And
That's right. He
stuff.
chases down a cab. I remember that in one episode, right? Of the one scene. But my pick for action movie is a great movie from the early 70s, Across 110th Street. Interesting movie which really stars, in title only at least, Anthony Quinn and Yaphet Kotto,
Yeah.
who are two cops trying to chase down these guys who robbed a mob establishment in Harlem.
First interracial buddy team.
First interracial buddy team. At the same time that they're being chased by the police, the mob is trying to chase these two guys. But the movie really belongs not necessarily to the stars in a title, but to an interesting cast of supporting actors who really do some fantastic work here. And one of those guys is Paul Benjamin, a character actor that we've seen over the years.
Yeah.
And in this scene we're going to take a look at now, Paul Benjamin, this is after the heist, he's got the money from the mob, and he's in there with his woman in his apartment, and he has a discussion about why he stole the money, why his life is so frustrating, but at this point, at least, he's winning the game.
Yeah.
So, Across 110th Street, 1972, let's take a look at the clip.
I always figured you a step and a half ahead of the pack. But now you're coming on like all the other dumb broads.
You don't stand a chance.
I ain't giving nothing back. You hear? Not one dime.
You don't stand a chance of living out the week.
What do you mean we don't stand a chance of living out the week? We didn't stand a chance of spotting that Cadillac they come riding up in, but we did. You know, we didn't stand a chance at being the same fat-faced accountant I'd recognized, but it was. You see, like not a chance in hell of walking into that room and coming out of live, much less with 300,000. But we did. And now you're talking about we don't have a chance of living out the week. You know that, do you? I mean, no chance at all. Well, I'm rolling. You see, I made my point 10 times today, and I still got the dice, and I'm gonna keep on rolling. Yeah, all right. At first you told me not to try it, you see, but you was wrong, dead wrong. Until 6 o'clock this evening, what was sure for me? I'll tell you what. Prison. Back in the giant again, beating my pud in my hand. You know, outside in some asshole job like a janitor or a porter. You know, cleaning up after some goddamn white man. And you see, that was sure. That was dead sure.
You'd have gotten a job sooner or later.
Look at me, huh? Look at me! You're looking at a 42-year-old ex-con nigger with no schooling, no trade, and a medical problem. Now, who the hell would want me for anything but washing cars or swinging a pick? You gotta get your mind out of that white woman's dream.
A little frustrated there.
I would say so. You know what, though? That performance was really powerful. A lot of times, this is the film, I actually use sequences from this very often to teach my directing students, and I talk to them about actors taking chances. And that is a lot of times, now it seems like, you know, and this isn't everybody, but actors sometimes they're like, well, I have to be careful about the types of roles I'm going to take, and I'm not going to do this because people are just going to harm my ability to make money, outside monies with the advertisements and blah 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 and so on and so forth. But in this one, the two actors in that scene, they were just going for broke.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my man was in to win, beginning to end. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
And as a director, what you want is for actors to dig into the material and to trust you enough as a director to take those chances and to get out there, to get way out there, so that they can impact the audience in a way that's more impactful more visceral. And this scene was fantastic for that, for talking about the type of frustration that men and women had at that time, at the black community in particular, with that sense of not being able to move freely through society and a kind of economic imprisonment as well.
You know, exactly. And the title of the film, and by the way, the film has an incredible score by Bobby Womack, whose theme across 110th Street, of course, ends up being an R&B hit during the time. But there's interesting little bits around the movie. I mean, there's the mob guy, DeSalvia, who has to sort of track down Paul Benjamin's character and his partner in this, who's played by Tony Franciosa, who you know had up until that point pretty much was sort of a pretty boy kind of an actor. Lets his hair go gray and kind of does a sinister turn. And my pick for the scene stealer is Richard Ward, great actor here, who's probably better known as being James Evans' father in some of the old Good Times episodes, who plays his mob figure, Black Harlem mob figure, who might really be pulling the strings behind much of what you see.
With that whiskey and cigarettes voice that he had going on,
kind of
too.
like this, there, like that. Yeah, it was pretty good.
You know, one of the other things, there's another thing that I thought that was very interesting about the conflict, because at the very beginning they show, they have the Salt and Pepper team and Anthony Quinn and Yafet Kotto, but Yafet Kotto is coming in and he's black and he's college educated. Right. And part of Anthony Quinn's sort of distaste for that, and they make it, and this is one thing about good writing in films that I feel like one thing that gets me out of a film quickly is when they don't create characters that are three-dimensional. Anthony Quinn's character, he says, I think he's 55 years old at this point, and part of his anger is that, for one, they're bringing Yafet Kotto in. He's college educated, but that he's younger, and they have that fantastic sequence that they shoot in the beginning in the bathroom. Oh yeah. Part of the reason they were able to do that was because they had the new Panaflex cameras that were really small, so they could get inside those tight spaces and just shoot whatever it was that they wanted to. But they have that sequence in there where he has to sort of come to grips with the fact that he says to the other guy, if they try to force this on me, I resign. And the other guy says, hey, that's what they want. Exactly. They're pushing out everybody that's over, I think, over 50 years old. How old are you? And he says, I'm 55. Right? And so he's got like a true economic incentive that's not totally or necessarily dictated by race to try to keep another man from taking his job.
Exactly. And a great movie. Unfairly, I think, sort of seen as a blaxploitation film. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it really is a film that belongs to a different class of sort of gritty, made in New York films of the time. Maybe French Connection, maybe Report to the Commissioner, and maybe some others. And Anthony Quinn was a producer of this, so he had some skin in the game as well. But overall, a great movie that's worth taking a look at.
There was one other thing that I thought was really fantastic, where one of the guys who was the goon he was this really kind of really flamboyant character. He was wearing, look, I know it's just the 70s black exploitation period, so it's hard, but even for the standards of the 70s black exploitation, that brother's clothing was like extra
And do you
extra
know,
flamboyant.
It was. And do you know who his character's name was Shelby? And this guy ends up being, he's a judge in Law and Order on occasion, but he's probably best known for being the king of cartoons in an old Pee Wee Herman show. I know, but so when he was young, before the cartoons,
when he was young, he was walking around wearing orange and chartreuse suits, big flowery hats, and serving as the muscle.
Indeed, looks like a member of the Shy Lights kind of gone bad, right? Yeah.
Okay, so my clip is from a film called A Piece of the Action. Before we were talking about Sidney Poitier sort of expanding his image, he decided that he was going to move to the other side of the camera and actually direct. They had had some success prior to that. He teamed up with Bill Cosby, and they made what was it, Uptown Saturday Night, and then they made Let's Do It Again. This one is the third one. It wasn't called a trilogy at that time because they actually, the first two were clearly linked together. This one was not. It was just another one that starred those two characters. This one was actually shot in Chicago, though. And you could call this also sort of the beginning of the buddy film, but let's look at the clip.
Indeed.
Name Mrs. B. Quitman mean anything to you?
Yeah.
She came in and asked for you. Just left. Got into a limo with 5 hood types. 2 of them sitting in your car right now.
Where's B?
She drove off in the limo with the other 3. They looking for you?
Yeah.
Is it serious?
Very.
That's what I thought. I don't want you to get mad, but I had Leela call Nikki, come over to her place.
That was good. Thanks. B. She gave her right name. She must be trying to tell me something.
Well, what are you going to do?
I'm going to stay away from my car, for one thing, until I find out what's going on. And there's only one man who can tell me.
Detective Joshua Logan Burke.
Right. I don't want you in on this, Dave. It's my problem.
Detective Joshua Logan Burke happens to be my problem also.
Dave, I'm trying to keep you out of this.
But you can't.
You know, what strikes me about that scene is how well played it is.
Yeah.
And there's true love between those two men,
Hey.
which we don't really see in movies. You know, there's always this sort of safe distance, masculine distance in movies, but he's not afraid to show it. And of course, it's great to see Bill Cosby when he's young, and of course Sidney Poitier when he's young.
Before I start eating Jello pudding.
Oh yeah, before the pudding got to him, right?
You know, I'm in agreement with you on this. There's another element to this film where you have these two characters who are sort of operating outside of the law, and then James Earl Jones tells them, the two of you are going to you're going to use your skills to help these impoverished inner city kids in Chicago get jobs. And if you don't do it, I'm gonna send you to prison for the amount of time that I have evidence on these crimes that you committed. And in the doing of that, they actually discover a friendship with themselves that's going to be really meaningful to them. It seems like from the film for the rest of their lives. And so it's this sort of redirection of energy that ends up, again, it ends up working out really for their good. In that scene, clearly you can see that Sidney Poitier, at this point, his character's life is in danger, and he's trying to he wants to handle the business. He's saying, look, man, I don't want to bring you in on this. And Bill Cosby's saying, you know, he says, but you can't.
Right.
He's like, I'm not gonna let you do this by yourself. And I don't see that many movies nowadays anymore where black men's friendship is meaningful to them in a way, or is portrayed in a way that is expansive to their lives, or that they're willing to take risks to help each other. It's always like, I'm a dog this brother,
right,
or I'm gonna betray him, or I'm gonna, it's something along those lines instead. And that's supposed to be, that's an outcropping of a new way of being hard, but really it's just, you're just out there by yourself with nobody to help you.
Exactly. And great scene, just a great movie. I mean, Bill Cosby didn't do, this is a comedy, but you can see in scenes like this that he really did have the makings, if he wanted to really do some dramatic stuff. And he's done some a little bit before, Hickey and Boggs, another woefully underseen movie directed by Robert Culp. Robert Culp, and he teams back up with Robert Culp from I Spy, and it's sort of this hangdog, early 70s kind of detective thing. And Bill Cosby does show some dramatic chops there, and he does get a chance to do it later on, but just a fantastic movie. And a great scene.
The opening sequence to this film also has this Bill Cosby is a safecracker, and so it has this sophisticated sequence that you see in like safecracking movies now. And if you watch it, it actually is similar to the scene that Tom Cruise does in Mission Impossible. Whereas, I don't want to give away too much to people who haven't seen it want to watch, but that sequence is for a 70s film is the equal with respect to sophistication of the safe cracking movies of its time. It's not like it's not like Rafifi or something like that, which is like a masterpiece. But just for like sort of a general population type of film is fantastic. And I think that sometimes people forget about ways in which another thing that could be interesting about black films is people could take chances sometimes, and sometimes the chances were like flops, and sometimes they were really fantastic creative endeavors that they were able to execute.
And you're absolutely right. The 70s were a time, and a lot of our movies kind of trend that way that we show here. But they really were a time of experimentation in some respects, and people were willing to take risks. And you, oddly enough, you could see more fully developed black characters in some movies with more frequency, or as much or more frequency as you do now. And certainly cinematic tricks that you see employed not just in high-end general movies, but in African American movies, theme movies was also seen as well. So it was a great time.
It was. Okay, that's going to wrap up this installment of Action. Come back next time when we talk about drama.